So that should be okay now. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for giving up a bit of time on your Sunday afternoon to join us for this talk about public transport in Ryedale. So welcome on behalf of Ryedale Environmental Group. In terms of this is how going to work today, we will try and make it interactive. As we said already, there's a chat box there in your Zoom window. So open that up and say hi, tell us where you're from. And we'll use that. Any comments, questions, thoughts you've got, ideas, use that, the chat box for that as well. But you stay on video as well. If you're on video, that's great. And we will bring you into the discussion itself as we go through, and especially when we get to the Q&A part. Apart from that, as I said, it will be recorded so that other people can watch it later on. But it only captures the slide and the voices, so it doesn't capture all the stuff in chat and so on. Apart from that, I guess that's it. So yeah, keep your eye on chat, start to interact in there, and hope you enjoy Helen's little presentation. Sorry, Helen, you're on mute. It's my fault. I muted you. Blame me for that one.
Me as well. Right, you can hear me now. I was just going to say that I'm going to find it hard to keep an eye on chat and talk at the same time. So what I thought I'd do is share with you some pictures, some slides and some ideas. And then when I've got through what I want to say, then we can have a chat and a discussion at the end. Because it's hard for me to read and talk at the same time. And you will notice me looking to the side. I'll try and look at you, but I've got some notes here. So if I keep looking like that, that's what I'm up to. So I'm Helen Gundry. I'm one of the voluntary directors of Moorsbus. I have been since 2014. And also, even longer than that, I've been secretary of the Northern Ryedale Public Transport Group. And I see very much public transport as part of the Build Back Greener challenge that the whole country's got at the moment. Some people here are very aware of the different public transport that there is, and some people aren't. So those of you who are, just have to bear with me while I just whiz through some of the public transport options that are available to Ryedale. So I start with the coastliner service that goes through Whitby and serves goes through Malton up to Whitby and including the whole of Holcombe and other lovely places, and also the other direction down to York and Leeds. Or at Malton, of course, you can get on the other one and go off to Scarborough up to the coast that way. The same company that run Coastliner also run the service to Castle Howard and the Howardian Hills, and also the service between Malton and Hovingham, serving all the lovely villages and going into it's actually on the border of the Howardian Hills, but sort of serves some nice places, gives some nice options for getting off on. And then we've got the trains from Malton off to Scarborough and also into York, Leeds and beyond. But some people might not be aware that also the Esk Valley Railway is not that far away. I was just looking for an escape sometime soon when lockdown lifts in Scotland a bit, and I looked in from Castleton Moor, which is only 15 miles from Kirby Moorside, and it's a really quiet little place. You could leave a car. You could be in Newcastle by 9:30 in the morning and sort of sample the cultural delights of Newcastle. You could be in Edinburgh if you wanted a weekend in Scotland by just after 1 o'clock, and that's a lovely run. And actually, I was looking, you can get all the way to Portree in the Isle of Skye and be there at 9 o'clock in the evening if you were going right up. So the Esk Valley Railway, and they've got a lovely website with lots of ideas on it, but it's not just, and it's just slightly outside of Ryedale, but it's very accessible from Ryedale, and certainly for getting up to the north and the northeast and further north, it's really good to try. Then we've also got, of course, Ryedale Community Transport, and they do some public transport services from, they do a different route each weekday, and they also do a Saturday route as well. So if you look on their website, and then those services are partly funded by the County Council in the small minibus. They do little village routes, but well worth knowing about. Then we've got East Yorkshire Motors. It's actually East Yorkshire. It's now been taken over by the Go Ahead Group, which is a really big company. But East Yorkshire for a long time were a family firm based in Hull, but with a depot in Scarborough, who do the Scarborough district. And that's a key route, one of the longest routes in the country for a regular scheduled bus service from Scarborough out to Helmsley, serving all the the towns and villages all in between. Weekdays, not Sundays at the moment, unfortunately, but Sundays in the summer as well. And then there may be others, and if anybody thinks of other things that I've missed out, we also got Reliance, which is another family firm based near York, who run the Helmsley, Cudmore-Head, Helmsley, Howardian Hills down to York. Again, really essential service for people in the northern part of Ryedale. So if that's not enough and for you, then we've also got the Moorsbus services, which are the summer services which Moorsbus Community Interest Company run. So Paul, can we take that slide off and get the first of the Moorsbus slides, because that's got a little map. You won't be able to see that map probably on your screens, but it is on the moorsbus.org website, and it shows you just how big an area the Moorsbus services serve, which is sadly not running this year, but hopefully in next year we'll be back up doing it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and bank holiday Mondays from the beginning of May to the end of September. Bringing people in from all over the place, from Thirsk and Northard, from the northeast, from Malton. People could get off the train in York and come in from York. And the reason I want to mention Moorsbus is, although it may be Sunday and sort of weekends and summer Sundays, and they sort of more geared at the visitor market, but it is locally organised. So when we get frustrated about not being enough buses, not being convenient, not being in the right places, the Moorsbus came out of the Northern Ryedale Public Transport Group in 2013, and it's run by volunteers. It's a volunteer led organisation who bring in commercial companies, bring in funding, and bring everything together in order to organise new services. So quite an important side of public transport in this area, because there's a lot of potential there to do more. There's an awful lot of potential. So I don't know if you can see, because I've got the chat box right in the middle of me of the screen, but we've got, as well as the map there, we've got a lovely picture of some people from Holland, a family from Holland in Helmsley the other year, and also a group of local walkers who come from the northeast, use the Moorsbus really regularly. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the importance of Moorsbus for those who are not that familiar with it. It's about bringing trade to local businesses, supporting jobs, just by just bringing visitors in is just so important for this area. And
Helen, if the chat box is in the way, just close it down. To click the X.
Yeah, I know what it says. It's just for the people. That's all.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, but
Thank you, yeah.
that they can still see it as long as you close it down.
Yeah. All right then. Yeah, no, I might lose this again now. So one of the other groups we've got on the back of the bus on this slide here, they're actually runners, not walkers. So I mean, walk and ride is a really important part of supporting local public transport. But some people like to go faster. So these people were taking the bus up from up to the top, up Rosedale, I think it was, to the top, and then they were going to run all the way back again. And they were using the Moorsbus most Sundays on different routes to really extend what they could do, because they'd sort of start in one place, take the bus whether they fancy, get off and run back, which gives them a lot more opportunities. So just like walk and ride, it it gives you, you do one leg of your route on the bus, it gives you a much wider range. These people are on the more energetic side, they were doing it on the running. Now we've got there, it's the as I mentioned of the bus passes, but one of the good things about having the running in the younger age group, of course, is that when people use bus passes on Moorsbus, we only get about £1 each time a passage used, so it impacts on the income. If we get younger people who are sort of running and just a younger crowd, it does help to support the finances of the Moorsbus. It costs about £400 each time each day for each Moorsbus route, and about half of that is covered by fares and passes, so we have to raise the rest of it. So this is the challenge and the opportunity for the Moorsbus. We work with quite sort of 4 or 5 different local operators on different routes depending on where they're starting from, but we need the money coming in. So the Moorsbus is really important for the Ryedale area, because although the presumption is that most people drive, nearly 1/5 of the population of Ryedale don't actually have a car. And those are the hidden people who can't get out. You might be on the edge of the North York Moors, but without the Moorsbus services, you can't get out there. The Moorsbus serves, for instance, the national park centres at Danby and Sutton Bank, and there's no other public transport to those places, to the door. So without the Moorsbus, people just can't take advantage of the national park, which is a national park. So I'm just going to go back to my notes now for a little bit, see what I've been missing out. So yeah, the other thing about the buses that we're using is they're very low emission. So throw your prejudices out the window about smelly old buses. We're using really modern buses, which have got lower emissions than a diesel car or a petrol car. So as well as being lower emissions, if you think of how many cars are taking off the road, if people can get themselves on the bus instead of using the car, there's a multiple benefit there of using these nice modern buses. At the moment, we're not able to use some electric buses because of the distances involved and the charging. They're certainly using more electric buses in some town and city areas now. It's increasing all the time, but at the moment it's not possible for these long rural routes, but we'll have to see how things go. Right, can we have the next slide, please, Paul? So there you are, yeah, the low emissions. And yeah, looking on this is the government statistics, the greenhouse gases. So even the government have recognised the huge impact of transport on the greenhouse gases and the challenge of that, particularly in rural areas where so many people depend on cars unless there's good public transport. It is really essential that we try and build up the public transport so that people can make greener choices. The local enterprise partnership have actually got a target by 2030 to double the number of public transport journeys. And I mean, I don't think that's a big enough target, actually, considering that we've had such big cuts in public transport. So the public transport journeys have gone down so much in the last 10 years. I think we need a higher target than that, but we really need to work hard on increasing public transport journeys, and that means all of us trying to include it in our holiday plans and in our daily plans as much as we possibly can. It really does make a big impact. So can we take that slide down again, please, Paul?
Do you want the next one, Helen?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah. I was just going to give the actually cyclists in the corner and mention that the green travel options are often enhanced if you can join things up. So one of the things that Moorsbus has done is tried really hard to do is to integrate the buses with the trains. And bus and train companies don't always want to do that. They see each other as competition. But we at Moorsbus think that's a bit daft. Really, you need to give people transport, green transport choices, which means connecting things up. So where the trains come in, you need buses that take people further on, and where the buses, as far as the buses can get, then you need cycle highway, or walking options, or other things where you can carry on your green journeys. It really needs pulling together and working together. So that, yeah, it's just a bit more on that slide about the cost for Moorsbus, and the fact that it is really supported through passenger donations, fundraising. We do a lot of fundraising. We have a Friends of Moorsbus group, and we've also tried to register as a charity, but unfortunately public transport is not, the Charity Commission will not accept it. So we have worked through some of the charities, such as the North Yorkshire Moors Association, who are really really helpful as a charity. They made one of their main projects, and yeah, the cost again is high per day. So next slide, please, Paul. Right, I'm going off Moorsbus so we can come back to that for some questions. If anyone's not seen this site, the Man in Seat 61, it's about train travel. It's absolutely brilliant for advice about getting anywhere in the world by train. You can put in, it doesn't just come up with your times and stuff. He's really good at explaining and talking you through things. And they've even got like little videos of how to get through ferry terminals from a train, and and he talks you through the ins and outs, and which other sites you need to go on to find the tickets. I mean, if you want to get tickets in the Czech Republic, for instance, it tells you how to do it. It's got so much information on. So if you're humming and hawing and a bit nervous about sort of committing yourself to doing a holiday by train, I would strongly recommend this site. It is really good. We have put a link to it on the Ryedale Environmental Group website now, and we'll try and build up the Ryedale Environmental Group, the transport information on there, to give people more ideas about what they can do, so that the environmental group can support this transport, public transport targets. If people got the information, it'll be much easier to do that. So if you could take that slide down, please, Paul, and see what we've got next. Yeah, this is familiar to June, who I think is out there somewhere. She calls this her Paris bus. It's just to sort of make the point again about how far you can get. This is the Reliance 31X service sitting in Kirby Moorside, waiting to leave for its journey to York. But June got on this bus to go to Paris, and she also went to Brussels. And then sort of a few days later, she was back in time for a cup of tea, sort of late afternoon. Really, really nice service. And again, you just you need to sort of, it's good to try and think and plan. At the moment, I know it's difficult to make plans for anything, but I'm all for being optimistic and hoping things will get better for us being able to travel around. I was wanting to go up to Scotland, like I mentioned before, going up to Skye, but you can't visit anybody's houses at the moment up there, so put that on hold. But at least I know I can do it next year sometime, as soon as the restrictions are lifted. You really can go a long way, and one of the things that we sort of say to people when they're thinking about using Moorsbus service, which obviously the rural services are less frequent than the buses in cities and towns, is have a backup plan. Just like if you were driving somewhere, you'd have a breakdown plan, or just for those things which probably won't happen, but just in case something goes wrong, have a backup plan of what else you can do, where you could stay if you got really stuck, who you could ring, and yeah, and go for it. So where are we? If you take that one down, please, Paul. So Northern Ryedale Public Transport Group, I wanted to tell you about this group because it's very small. It could do with some more support. We could do a lot more actually with this group. And it's called Northern Ryedale because it's been going a really long time, and it started off with people campaigning on the, in the north, in Pickering, Kirkby Moorside, in the Northern Ryedale villages. But there's no reason why it can't cover the whole of Ryedale. It's just a question of who gets involved and wants to do what. So you can read through there. I mean, it's always been a group of passengers, including parish councils, including bus operators, and giving people a chance to come together and sort out anything that needs sorting about routes, about services, about increasing services, about challenging cuts to services. And one of the things we've been looking at recently is access. So, for instance, there's quite a lot. The 128 service regularly serves Helmsley, and 31X goes through Helmsley. But did you know that if you're a wheelchair user, you can't get off in Helmsley and you can't get on unless you use the sort of way out stop, which is right out on the A170 just as you come in, where there's a bit more of a pavement. This is because all the buses are fitted with ramps for wheelchairs now. But the ramps need to go down onto a curb, and there needs to be a decent amount of space on the curb, on the pavement area, to sort of manoeuvre a wheelchair up and on and off again. And in Helmsley, you haven't got that, of course. You've just got cobbles and really low, bumpy area. So one of the things we were looking at, the Northern Ryedale Public Transport Group hasn't managed to meet during lockdown because there's quite a few people who don't use Zoom, and it's been difficult to get that organised. But what we were looking at about this time last year was bringing partners together to look at Helmsley and look at what the options were for improving the wheelchair access. Make a big difference to a lot of people who, not just people actually in wheelchairs, but anybody with a back problem. If you've got a long step to get down, it's just really off-putting if you're going to get pain getting on and off. Or if your knees are bad or whatever, it just needs to make things a bit more comfortable for people to use the buses. Pleased to say that the Dolby Forest Centre, they've now got they've improved their accessibility of the bus. I haven't actually been to have a look yet, but I don't know if anyone's been. Maybe someone can say in the chat box if they've actually been to have a look. And we're also, the National Park Centre at Danby have made a commitment to put in wheelchair accessible bus stops. Again, they don't, it's a lovely place, but you can't get off the bus, you can't get back on again at the moment in the wheelchair. So we're hoping that by the time we get the Moorsbus services running again next year, you'll be able to get on and off on a wheelchair there. Make a big difference for some of the, lots of people from Pickering and all around anywhere that connects with the Moorsbus network, sort of Moulton, York, and you'll be able to get up there and enjoy the centre. So yeah, we'll put some information about Northern Ryedale Public Transport Group on the Ryedale Environment Group website, and hope to get some more people involved and try and get going with stuff. Possibly might manage some Zoom meetings if we can't meet in real life for a little while, and try and get moving again on the accessibility while it's while we've got the opportunity to do so. Can we take that slide down again, please, Paul?
I think that was the last one, actually.
Is that the last one? That's okay.
Shall I stop
if
sharing?
If it's possible to take it down, we can see each other for a bit, which would be
nice to see some faces.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yes. So I shall just see what else I've got here to tell you about.
Amazing comments in chat, by the way. So
right. Well, I haven't even looked at that.
No, I can help you with that.
Yeah. We'll have a look at that in a minute.
Shout when you're ready.
I've nearly done it. There's a few things. It sent me some really good information about about the difference, the difference between using electric buses and cars, and what we thought we'd do is summarize it and put with lots of good links. We thought we'd summarize that and put it on the Ryedale Environment Group website, but just basically the electric bus, even when you're talking about electric bus, it's 3 times more efficient than using electric car. So although we've got, obviously not everybody lives where you can use a bus, but if you can, and if other people can, we really need to be pushing the fact that electric cars are not the answer. They are part of the answer, but it's not enough to say, oh, we'll just all switch to electric car. And the congestion factor, of course, you just get just as much congestion from electric cars as you will from petrol and diesel cars. So as part, sort of the strategy for sort of going forward has really got to push public transport more, and not sort of try and just copy what we're doing now, but try and make it some a little tiny bit greener. It's just not good enough. Where I'll see what else we've got here. Yeah, there's one nice thing that jumped out of what Eden said, which was the average car driver in less than 18 months would emit the same amount of carbon as a ton of plastic bottles, which is 25,000 plastic bottles. So you might as well just be throwing plastic bottles out the window instead of recycling them, if you're not going to make an effort to try and use public transport more. Yeah. So I think I'll stop there and go and look at the chat box where we've got a chance for people to sort of have a say and have a discussion before we finish, because we've got a quarter of an hour left. So thanks for hearing me out, everybody, and I'll have a look at the chat now and see what we can do with that.
That's brilliant. While you're doing that, I'll give you a chance to catch up, Helen. I've got to bring you in, Eden. So did you say Malton to Beijing? I think you need to tell us about that. So you want to unmute yourself, Eden? Or I can unmute if you want.
I should be unmuted. It was a bit of a bet with our then 3rd member of Moorsbus, Bill Brakel, who sort of reared the Moorsbus from its infancy, that I could get to Beijing by public transport, but I didn't manage it. I had to get a taxi to Malton, which was pretty frustrating, really. Managed it coming home, but got all the way back to Ryedale by public transport, but sadly not going. But yeah, it was an interesting trip.
Amazing, sounds amazing.
And Chinese buses still have signs that say, please don't spit on the floor.
And how long did that take, Eden?
Honestly, and not as bad as that, our buses do not have signs that say don't spit on the floor.
And how long did it take to get all that way?
Oh, it's just a matter of getting to the station, obviously. So, I don't know, it's a day, 2 days, something like that. It's most of it, sadly, is the flight. Honestly, it's the last big flight I did, and it was a long time ago. Shan't do anymore.
Helen, anything you spot there?
Yeah, how we get people back on the bus, I think certainly that is something that Ryedale Environment Group could maybe help us take on. It's something that we need to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It's not enough for Northern Ryedale Public Transport Group and Moorsbus and York Bus Forum to be sort of shouting this thing. It needs to be wider. There needs to be a lot of people pushing, and I think, with it being a local enterprise partnership target, it may be that the LEP might help us with some funding for promotion and pulling people together on that, pulling the bus operators together. We have been trying to work with the county council who do fund some of the services, but we've all been struggling to get that partnership going, and we need to keep working at that. I think it is quite hard work, but the more people that use the public transport, then the more justification there is for going to the county and the county councils and saying, look, we need more funding investment in these routes so that it can become even more convenient and then more people can use it. So we've really got to keep pushing.
Could I come in there, please?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, right. I did have a bit of an idea there. I probably didn't get time to run it by Helen. I think an awful lot of environmental groups have a big elephant in the room. It's called the motor car. You know, we all tend to think that it's essential. I think most of us probably have them, unless they're in the 20% of the country that are forgotten about and don't, as Helen said. I would like to see environment groups taking a lot more lead in saying, well, actually, yeah, we'll keep a car, but we'll use public transport an awful lot more and cut down a lot of carbon. What about, and I say this as a pure outsider, a non-reg member, but what about a policy or even a suggestion that reg members use the bus instead of the car once a week? The figures that I worked out, my maths are poorly, I must admit, are that you'd actually use 67% less, or produce 67% less carbon that day. And that's 9.5% a week. That's without any other form of recycling, environmental measures at all. The equivalent of that is apparently 100 recycled bottles. To put that into terms, as Helen said, if you could trundle along, if you didn't bother doing that day, and every mile and a half, throw a plastic bottle out the window. So just a suggestion, but it would leave us with, if we could get that message over that it's only a day, let's try it. It'd leave Ryedale a lot nicer, safer place for pedestrians, cyclists, young and the old, and everybody else using the road apart from car drivers. And they actually would find there's a bit more space on there as well. So a suggestion for you all. I'll shut up now.
Sounds like a good one as well. I think I wonder if we could bring David in here, because what was on my mind is maybe what you were saying. I started using transport an awful lot wherever I could, and then COVID came along.
Yeah.
And I'm just not sure I'm ready to go back yet. But obviously, David, you have. Any thoughts on that, how we get people going back on the buses?
Yeah, I think all you can do is make it a positive financial decision for them, that they don't spend any money. Because I can tell you now, I'm not a massive bus user between Hovingham and Malton. It's an 8-mile trip. It's £37 return in a taxi. If you're in an electric car, it costs you about 60p, and you can charge it up when you get to Malton. You can take 3-4 other people with you if that's what you choose to do. And when I have been on the bus, there are a couple of services that are well used. But 7 years ago, we had 11 services, and we went to 2 different places. Now we've got 5 services going to 1 place only. It's impossible to use it if you have a job, because unless your job starts at around 7 and finishes before 2, you're going to be pushing it a bit to get the last bus back on one of the days of the week. So, you know, nobody's really thought about it, to be quite honest. It's got to be a loss leader. The county council are paying, presumably, hand over fist to the operator to run the service. That's not the first time I've been the only person on the bus. And quite a lot of the other times I've been on the bus, I've been the only person who's actually paying a fare. So yeah, I might look as I'm old, but I haven't got my pass yet. So, but everybody else on the bus had. And you know, I know from a friend of mine who works for East Yorkshire, you know, the general public think that the operator gets the full fare for somebody using the pass. Well, they don't. So, you know, whatever they're doing on our bus service, we're just doing it so wrong. Why can we not? I mean, we're losing money on the. I mean, we cannot be making any money whatsoever. So why not just make it free and get more people on it for a start?
Helen, do you want to come in?
They do actually do. They are actually doing that in some countries in the continent now, aren't they? They are actually putting on free buses just because it just makes much more sense to get, you know, there's so much more impact across the board if they get more people travelling. We haven't quite got that there yet, but it's certainly worth pushing our MP and our county councillors and saying, look, you know, it can be done better than this. And some of this, we've got a mixture of subsidised services and commercially run services. So where the service has been cut back, it's often that they're still commercially run, and that's the only way the operator can keep going is by to cut back. But it's not. You're quite right, David. It's not a healthy way to organise things.
Yeah, well, I think what I find really interesting is they do a survey when they're coming up to reviewing the bus service, and that survey, every time they've done it, just shows falling levels of figures. And to be quite honest, the county council, and this is just my opinion, would be much better off just giving whatever they're paying for the service to the community transport and let them run some sort of service at no cost to people. Yeah, it might not be as big a bus, but I mean, we didn't really need a very big one for just me. And you know, the other time I've caught the bus this year, I think there were 3 other people on it. And you know, these are times when you would expect the bus to be quite busy, 10 o'clock in the morning, people going to the shop, you know, do the shopping in Malton or whatever. So I just think we need to turn it on its head, just look what's going to get people onto buses. And COVID's not helping.
One of the issues, certainly for Moorsbus, is capacity. So we've looked at working with community transport sized vehicles, but it doesn't work for if you're trying to encourage the visitor economy. So you need to keep the capacity up, but you need to boost the numbers rather than cutting the capacity, which means you'll never get better numbers. Because one of the key things about public transport is confidence. People have got to know they can get on that bus when and that it's going to come. So the sort of the confidence and the connections and the cost are all tied up together. And we've got, so that's certainly one of the things we could sort of push through the Ryedale Environment Group and other groups, you know, what the key things are that to support and enhance public transport that matter to people. Your frustrations are very familiar. I don't know, Graham, we've only got a few more minutes. If you want to say anything from the York Bus Forum, because you've done great stuff in York, and it'd be good to hear a little bit. You're muted at the moment. Graham, you're muted.
Oh, I managed it now.
That's
right,
great.
okay. Yes, I mean, I've put a couple of things in the chat. I mean, a couple of things about York services is basically they've hardly been reviewed for I don't know how many years. And I think the same issue applies with the services there that David's talking about. I don't think the county council really have done any proper review of where people's travel needs are. It's no use just running the same old service that you've always run. If you're not getting the people, you need to find out what time of the day they want to travel. That seems to me a key point. In terms of influencing people, we've found meetings with groups of the political party councillors been very useful. We've had meetings now, 2 with the Green Party, 1 with Labour and 2 with the Liberal Democrats. And we found that that's quite a good way of getting things done, rather than, you know, working directly with the council officers has got its limitations, and the same applies with the bus operators, especially if their main incentive is a commercial one. I don't know if anybody wants to ask anything about anything else we're doing, or
I think we're all very impressed with what you're doing, Graham. Very, very impressed indeed.
Well, one of the things we've been involved in, I just mentioned quickly then, we've been working with the Civic Trust and York Environment Forum, and we ran a transport survey of all residents, commuters and visitors last autumn. And following that, we set up what we've called a Citizens Transport Forum of about 100 people who responded to the survey and indicated they wish to be involved in talking about transport in York for the future. And this is all feeding in, we hope, to York's next local transport plan. we've had one meeting of the Citizens Transport Forum so far, which everybody seems to think was successful, including the councillors and the transport officials. And we're planning another one. We would have had one sooner, but because of COVID, we couldn't do it. But the first one was in February. We're planning another one now next month, where we're going to get people together again and try and take things further forward on influencing York's next transport plan.
That sounds really good. Yeah, it's just a sort of joined up proper progress that we need to, we need to try and copy around here, definitely.
I mean, in terms of who you can get help from, I put in the chat, if the LEP are keen on getting more people on buses, as you say they are, then I think they ought to be prepared to help with at least a bit of marketing, or even give you a grant of some kind. I don't know. We've had discussions with the LEP in York on supporting evening buses and things like that. So, I think it's certainly worth pursuing. The other thing I would mention is Go Ahead Group, of course, is now headed by Martin Gilbert, who was at Reading Transport, who's very well known for, being Go Ahead, basically. And so I think it might be worth trying to get a meeting with him to see whether his bus company might be prepared to do a bit more to help. Or with East Yorkshire, of course, directly with East Yorkshire. Hope that gives you a few ideas to be going on with.
Yeah. So Paul, we're about on our limited time now, I think, aren't we?
We're pretty much there. I'm happy
Yeah.
to keep the Zoom open a few minutes for anyone who wants to hang on for some one or two more questions. Not rushing in anywhere immediately. Just thanks as well for Lizzie's contribution there. I think this public transport on COVID thing is about weighing up the risks, and so really interesting, because I've stopped using it, I must say, since COVID, and we'd started really changing things around, and but there's risk associated with getting in the car. Liz, do you want to come in briefly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's I've just finished reading a New Scientist article on what's your COVID-19 risk, and it's really, really interesting. It's basically how we measure the risk, looking at relative risk, looking at all of these situations, and really trying to get everything in context. And as we know, when we get into a car, we don't stress about it most of the time, but that's quite a good way of, exposing yourself to the risk of dying. And I think it's something where we need to encourage people. And I know that Network Rail and others and the train operators are trying to encourage people, when the time is right, to coming back to use public transport, because that is obviously more sustainable, but also it is better, for all sorts of reasons, and it is also better for our health and safety as well. But it's interesting, isn't it, how if it's a dread risk, a new risk, we do tend to panic, but if it's something we're used to, we just take it for granted. So, no, I thought I'd share that with you.
That's really interesting. Is there a link to that? Do you know that research somewhere?
I don't know. It's actually it's a paper copy. I'm sure there must be if you Google New Scientist. It's the October edition. It's really quite good. It's everything from do short, sharp lockdowns work? The answer is we don't actually know yet. The risk evaluation and all of the bits and pieces that you'd expect. But it's a good read. I'm sure it must be online as well somewhere. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant, fabulous. Good. Any final words from you, Helen, or please to the group we have here?
Oh yeah, just sort of one thing, and that is, if anybody's got any outlets for Moorsbus jam, Moorsbus marmalade, I've got a stack of it. I've not been able to sell it very well this year, but it is a real good, gentle way of promoting it and bringing in unrestricted funds, which we can then use for supporting Moorsbus services. So so if anybody's got any ideas of possible outlets, the barn tea shop in Hutton the Hole have got some at the moment, but they're only open till the end of this week, and then they don't open again till February. So that was one one last thing. And no, just thank you everybody really for coming along today and sharing, and let's hope we can get ourselves, get organised and push public transport as part of the Build Back Greener in a really strong way.
Fabulous. No, thank you, Helen, for all the effort you put into this. So really interesting, really inspiring as well. And thanks for everybody else for getting involved as well. So as I say, we will put the recording on the website, so do share it and have a look out. I'll put links there to the other events. So we've got a session ongoing vegan at 5 o'clock this evening, and then one on all kinds of other different local community products and the Ryedale Community Charter that starts at 7. And they'll be, similar to this, pretty informal, just come along and either sit and listen or join the discussion. So hope to see you at some of those. But otherwise, again, thanks for joining, and special thanks for Helen, and take care. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks
Paul.
for organising it. It's really good.